Hi everyone! I'm going to cover something today that has nothing to do with verbs. Finally. This lesson is closer to nouns, but it's not exactly nouns either. I'm talking about the little words we put in front of nouns. Articles. The little words a, an, and the. How do we use them, and when do we leave them out? I'm going to share with you a lesson I used to do in the classroom for all levels of English. I'm even going to use the same presentation I used to use in the classroom. So if you've been my student in the classroom, you'll recognize this. Native English speakers would be very confused about why I need to spend a whole video lesson about articles. We use them from the time we learn to speak. That's why our native languages are so easy for us. I can remember one lesson when I was in elementary school. That lesson was just A before consonants and an before vowels. Well, I have 14 rules for using articles, and I'm going to share them with you. If your language doesn't have articles, and many of them don't, then listen carefully, take notes, and you can download the handout I use to give my students. There are some exercises on the handout that you can complete with me as you watch the video, if you'd like to. I'm going to suggest when you can pause the video if you want to do the exercises first before I go over the answers. Learning about English articles can be confusing, but if you learn the rules, listen to native English speakers, and practice a lot, you'll get it. It might take time, but you can do it. Just don't avoid using the articles. You'll sound like an English learner if you do that. You want to sound as close to a native speaker as you can, so you need to learn how to use these articles. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about it and start teaching you. Come with me. The first rule is A before consonants and an before vowels. The thing that many people don't know is that we don't actually go by the consonants and vowels themselves. We go by the sounds. So A before a consonant sound and an before a vowel sound. Go by pronunciation, not spelling. So we say a dog, a hat, but we say a 1-pound bag of flour because the word one doesn't begin with a vowel sound. The first sound in the word one is w. That's a W. And in English, a W is a consonant. So we say a 1-pound bag of flour. Next is an onion. Then a union. Yes, we use a because the first sound of the word union is y, and that's a Y sound. You might remember that we say that a Y is sometimes a vowel, but it's usually a consonant sound. In the word union, the Y is a consonant. Then we have an orange and an hour. Yes, there's an H, and an H is always a consonant, but in this word, the H is silent. Remember, we're going to use an before a vowel sound. The first sound you hear in the word hour is a, or a. So we say an hour. So if you printed out the handout I've provided on my website, you can pause the video now and complete the first exercise. When you finish, come back here and get the answers. This will be more helpful for you than just watching the video. I find that I remember things best when I write them down. You may be different, and that's okay. Now here are the answers. Number 1, an elephant. Number 2, a university. Did you remember to use A? It's because university starts with a Y sound. University. Okay. Number 3, an umbrella. This time the U sounds like a vowel, so we say an umbrella. Number 4, a ticket. 5, a VIP. When I lived in South Korea, there was a chain of restaurants called VIPs. Well, actually, VIP is an acronym, which is a word made from the first letter of a group of words. VIP stands for very important person. So in English, we say VIP, not VIP. So we need to say a VIP. Of course, even if we did say VIP, we need to use a VIP or a VIP. Number 6, an honest man. Here the H is silent, so the first sound we hear is a vowel sound. An honest. Number 7, a half-hour lesson. In this one, we do pronounce the H. Number 8, a 1-hour lesson. Remember, the word one begins with a W sound. We need a or a for this one. Let me just pause for a second to tell you that I usually will pronounce a for a because that's actually how we pronounce it when we're speaking. So either a or a, that's going to be the same word. Let's continue. Number 9, a useful book. This time the U sounds like it begins with a Y. Useful. So we need to use a for this one. 10, an SOS. I always thought this was an acronym, but I couldn't remember what it stood for. I just now looked it up and learned something interesting. So here's your bit of trivia for the day. SOS is not an acronym. It doesn't stand for anything. It was invented in the early 1900s when telegraphs using the Morse code were used a lot. You might remember that Morse code uses dots and dashes to spell out words. Well, it was decided that people needed a fast way to communicate the need for help. Well, it turns out the Morse code for S is 3 dots, and the Morse code for O is 3 dashes. So they made a distress signal by using 3 dots, 3 dashes, and 3 more dots. SOS. Now, anytime someone is in urgent need of being rescued, they write SOS. That was just something I found interesting. It doesn't really help the lesson. The point is that the first sound in SOS is a vowel sound. It sounds like a short E. So we have to say an SOS. Okay, let's keep going. Number 11, an X-ray. This is the same thing we had to do with the last one. X starts with the same short E sound as S. So we have to say an X-ray. Number 12, a European. Remember, the first sound is a consonant. It sounds like a Y. Number 13, a hand. This time we do pronounce the H, and that's why it's a hand. Number 14, an underpass. This is a kind of street or bridge. Number 15, a unit, just like number 9. Next, 16, a CD. That one's easy enough. Number 17, an exam. Another easy one. And finally, number 18, a school. How did you do? Did you get them all right? Are you ready for rule number 2? Let's do it. Rule number 2. We use one, not a or an, in these situations. First, in contrast with another, or other, or others. In the expression one day, with the words 100 and 1,000, but only when you want to sound precise. And in expressions like only one and just one. Here's some examples for you. One girl wanted to go out, but the others wanted to stay at home. One day I'll take you to meet my family. How many are there? About 100? Exactly 103. And we've got plenty of sausages, but only 1 egg. Okay, ready for the next exercise? I'm ready. Pause the video now if you want to complete the next exercise before I give the answers. Ready? Here goes. One day last year, it was a very hot afternoon in June. I was hurrying to get home. I was about an hour late, well, to be precise, exactly 1 hour and 10 minutes. I had taken the train that arrived at the station at 6:15. Anyway, there was a woman standing under the trees, and there were several children with her. I saw one child clearly. She was a lovely dark-haired girl, but I only heard the others. Suddenly, a strange thing happened. The girl took some stones and leaves out of her pocket and threw one stone after another into the air. Okay, let's move on to rule number 3. We use a or an to say what kind of thing somebody or something is, what job a person does, or what something is used as. A and an have no plural because a and an mean one. For example, we say she's a farmer, but we say they're farmers. We say he worked as a taxi driver, but we say they worked as taxi drivers. And we say don't use a knife as a screwdriver, but we say don't use knives as screwdrivers. Okay, if you want to stop the video now to do the exercise, go ahead. I'm not going anywhere. When you finish with exercise 3, come back and check your answers. Okay, don't forget to include the article with the names of the occupation. Let's go. Number 1 is an electrician. Number 2, a hairstylist. 3, a teacher. Number 4, a doctor. 5, an assistant. 6, a gardener. Number 7, a painter. Number 8, a photographer. 9, a cook. Number 10 is a composer. You could have said a musician because Beethoven was a musician, but number 11 is a musician, so composer is better for Beethoven. And number 12 is a scientist. I think this one should have been easier for you than the last one. Let's go to rule number 4. A and an can be an example of something. In the plural, we use no article or some. Look at these examples. A spider has 8 legs. Here, we're not talking about a particular spider. We're talking about spiders in general. If I say this using a singular noun, I'm talking about a spider as an example for all spiders. If we say spiders have 8 legs, we're saying the same thing. These two sentences really mean the same thing. A diamond costs more than a sapphire, and diamonds cost more than sapphires mean the same thing. And we can say, I'd like a cup of coffee, or we can say, I'd like some coffee. These two also mean the same thing, unless, of course, you're ordering several cups of coffee, or you'd like a pot of coffee, but who does that? Okay, we're at exercise 4. This time, if I were in the classroom, I'd ask people to volunteer to put these sentences together aloud for practice. I'm going to let you do this on your own, but I'll show you a couple of them so you can see how it works. The first column is the subject, the middle column is the object, and the last column is a relative clause. The verb be is in all of these. So the examples given are, a doctor is a person who helps people who are ill, and a pen is a thing used for writing. So the first one in the table is, a curtain is a thing that you put across a window. I'm sure you can figure out how the rest of them go. If not, write to me or call me and I'll help you out. Now, rule number 5. Rule number 5 is a or an can mean a particular one if you don't know exactly who or which. In the plural, we can use some or no article. For example, a man called while you were out. This sentence may be a bit outdated since everyone has a cell phone now, but maybe you're at work and you step away from your desk, or maybe you live somewhere that still has a landline telephone. Maybe you can just imagine some kind of situation where someone calls you when you're not around to answer the phone, and someone else does answer the phone. Some of us can remember when this example would work. Remember, we're trying to learn a grammar rule. So anyway, you're away from the phone and you come back and someone says to you, a man called while you were out. Or maybe you're really popular and the person says, some men called while you were out. Okay, how about this example? James married a doctor. Maybe his wife is also a doctor, so you could say, they both married doctors. Okay, let's have a look at the next exercise. It's exercise 5. This time, there's no right or wrong answers. These are personal, and you should take a few moments to think about these and to say them out loud for practice. What is true for you? What's in your pocket or handbag? Let's see. For me, I have my sunglasses in my handbag. If you want to pause and answer these for yourself, this is the time to do that. I'm just going to answer them for myself. Make these true for you. That's what you need to have as a goal for your English. You need to be able to express what's on your mind. What's true for you? Okay, for me, in my town, there's a big lake. I love to walk around the lake. It's 1 mile long. Okay, next one. If you see a 4-leaf clover, you'll have good luck. At least some people think that's true. How about this one? I recently bought a new pair of shoes. I needed some waterproof shoes, so I bought a pair. Finally, I've got a beautiful daughter. Actually, I have 2. Did you come up with some good examples here that fit your life? I hope you did. Let's look at rule number 6 about times we don't use a or an. We don't use a or an with uncountable nouns. Remember, a and an mean one. So we can't say a rain. We can say a raindrop, but we can't count rain. We don't use a or an with possessives. So don't say a my friend. Just say my friend or a friend of mine. After kind of or sort of, we usually don't use an article. We say a kind of tree, not a kind of a tree. In exclamations with what, we keep the article so we can say what a pity, not what pity. And we usually say a or an after quite, rather, and such. Like if I say, it's quite a nice day, or rather a nice day, or even such a nice day. Got that one? That one's kind of tricky. I don't have an exercise for this one. Just keep this rule in mind. Rule number 7, a and an in descriptions. Now it's time to remember the difference in meaning between a and an and the. Remember that a and an are for general things, and the is for specific ones. So we can say, he's got a long nose. But if we say, he's got the long nose, we're saying that he has the only long nose in the world. There are a lot of people who have long noses, so this sentence doesn't work. And you need to say, she's got an interesting face, not she's got the interesting face. Just like the last sentence, there are a lot of people who have interesting faces, so she can only have one of them. Does that make sense? This activity is a game we used to play in the classroom. If you have someone you can play this with, maybe a study buddy, do that. Otherwise, just think of some people you know and how you would describe them using the descriptions in the chart. Just be sure to use a or an and not the for these. Rule number 8. Remember that I said that a and an mean one? I've said that a few times. Well, if you can't count something, you can't use one, right? That is a number after all. So, when we use count nouns, which are just things we can count, we can't use a or an. Look at the example. She's got dark hair. Hair is a non-count noun. I know, technically we might be able to count the hairs on a person's head, but really they're too small and too many. No one is going to try to count all of a person's hair, so we think of hair as an uncount noun. For this reason, we can't use a or an. Of course, if she has brown hair and there's one gray one, you can count that one. You can say, she's got a gray hair. That's different. Okay, no exercises here. Now we're going to think about the with rule number 9. When we use the, you know which one we're talking about. For example, I bought a toaster and a microwave, but the toaster didn't work. The first time I mentioned toaster, I used a toaster. Now you know which toaster I'm talking about. It's the one I just bought. So when I say it again, I can say the toaster. Let's look at another one. The women over there work with my sister. You know which women I'm talking about because I'm pointing out a particular group of women that we can both see. The women over there. Please close the door. Most rooms probably only have one door, but if we're in a room with two doors, you probably know which one I'm talking about. It's the one that's open. If they're both open, you might have to ask me which one I'm talking about. But if I say, please close the door, I think you're going to know which one I'm talking about. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said, please close the door. I would have said something like, please close that door, and I would have pointed. We also use the with only to express a superlative. He's the only man for me. And it's the best restaurant in town. Exercise 7 is practice with this. In these exercises, put in the if the speaker and listener probably know exactly which ones we're talking about. Put in a, an, or this symbol to show that we don't know which one or ones. You can pause now if you like. Okay, let's go over the answers. Number 1, who opened the window? Clearly there's a window that's open now, but it wasn't before. I want to know who did this. The shows that we both know which window I'm talking about. Number 2, she lives in the center of Santa Ana. There's only one center of a city, so we know which center we're talking about. Number 3, I'd like a glass of water. I don't really care which glass, anyone will do. Number 4, my sister is married to a farmer. Okay, this one might be confusing. I do know which farmer my sister's married to, but it doesn't seem like you do, not from this sentence. You need to use the when both the speaker and the listener knows which one you're talking about. I hope that makes sense. Number 5, the man in the next apartment is French. He must live alone because we know who I'm talking about. Number 6, he's the oldest child in school. The first part is easy. If we're using a superlative, and oldest is a superlative, we have to use the. But why don't we use the article before school? Well, we could use the, but we don't need to because we have this expression in school. We know it's the school where he, whoever he is the oldest child. But in school signals that he's enrolled in that school. If we add the focus is more in the school rather than in the fact that he's the oldest child. It's a minor distinction, and you could use the if you really want to. The next one, who's the girl by the piano? In this situation, obviously, we're someplace where there's a piano and a girl. Maybe we're at a party and I see a girl I don't know. So I ask the host, who is the girl by the piano? There's clearly only one piano that has a girl next to it. One piano and one girl. Number 8. They've got a boy and a girl. The boy is 2 years older than the girl. You might know this rule. It's a rule about paragraphs usually. The first time we introduce someone or something, it's understood that you don't know who or what I'm talking about. So I use a or an. It means I could be talking about anyone. But once I've introduced you to the boy and girl, you know I'm talking about the boy and the girl. The same ones I was talking about. Number 9, today is the only day that I'm free. This one's obvious. I used only. Number 10, which coat is yours? The red one. Obviously, there's only one red coat. For this rule, I have 2 exercises. In exercise 8, I have a paragraph for you to complete with the, a, an, or the symbol for no article. Pause here and come back when you finish. Okay, are you ready for the answers? Here goes. Do you see the man standing near the door? He works as an assistant in the same shop as I do. Well, I saw him the other day, and he was driving a big red Porsche. And do you see the expensive clothes he's wearing? Where does he get the money to pay for it all? A month ago, he didn't have a penny. I told you about the burglary we had at the shop, didn't I? Do you think I should go to the police? If there are any vocabulary words here you'd like explained, please contact me. I'd be happy to clear that up for you. Okay, let's move to rule number 10. This one is about generalizations without the. This rule says that the does not mean all. We do not use the in generalizations with plural and non-count nouns. Look at the chart. We say, I like music, not I like the music. That's if we're making a general statement. I'm not talking about any music in particular, just I like music. If you say, can you turn off the music? This time you and I both know which music I'm talking about. It's the specific music that's playing right now. She's very interested in nature. We define nature as things that are naturally occurring, not as a result of human interference, but just as something that happens, like trees in a forest or a river flowing, that kind of nature. There's no article needed here, but we say, what is the nature of his illness? In this sentence, nature has a little different meaning. When we talk about the nature of something, we're talking about the quality or characteristic of something. So this question is asking about the symptoms of his illness. Here we're going to use the article the. People have to live in society. We're being general here. Society refers to the group of people living in an area. But we say, I've joined the Poetry Society. In this sentence, we're referring to a specific group, like a club. Sometimes these groups call themselves societies. The last one is, books are expensive. Any American university student can agree on this one, but put the books on the table is in reference to a particular stack of books. Are you ready for your practice exercise? That's exercise 9. This time, put the or the symbol for no article in the blanks in the paragraph. Come back when you're ready for the answers. Ready? Here goes. There must be something wrong with me. People usually think that babies are sweet and teenagers are annoying. Not me. I think babies are boring. I don't really think this. They're all great. Back to the paragraph. For me, children are only interesting from about the age of 2, when you can understand the things that they say. But the time between ages 13 and 20 are the years that I like best. Oh, it's difficult at times, but I still prefer talking about money with a teenager to cleaning a baby's bottom. Okay, good job. Rule number 11. We do not normally use the in generalizations with plural and non-count nouns, even if there's an adjective before the noun. Here's some examples. She's studying Chinese history, and he collects antique clocks. But we use the when a description with of follows the noun. For example, she's studying the history of China. You can practice this with exercise 10. This is another opportunity for you to practice things you might say. Make these personal. I'll answer these to be true for me, but you should think about how you might fill in these blanks. You can use the words suggested here in the chart, or you can use any adjectives to make these true for you. Since you're not here and I can't ask you directly, here's my answers. I like eating Italian food. Doesn't everybody? Actually, I like eating almost any kind of food. Okay, I like reading historic novels. I love warm and windy weather. I can't stand listening to heavy metal music. No disrespect for those who like that kind of music. It's just not my taste. I hate stormy weather. Well, if it happens at night when I'm sleeping, it's nice to hear, but I don't want to have to go out in it. I like being dry. And I like wearing casual clothes, and also pretty clothes. It's fun. Okay, did you do well on that one? I'm sure you did. Let's go to the next rule. Rule number 12. This is another rule about generalizations without the. We can use the in generalizations with singular countable nouns to talk about a whole class of things. This is common in scientific and technical language. Examples. Who invented the telescope? I can't play the piano. The tiger is in danger of dying out. I hate the television. Note also, I love the sea and do you like living in the country? In the U.S., when we talk about the country, we're talking about the same country, the U.S., but away from cities. Sometimes we say the countryside. It's out in nature. The last example is, I never go to the cinema or the theater. Actually, We sometimes use the theater to talk about the cinema, but it's really a place where you go to see a play or opera, something like that. Okay, I have another exercise for you. For exercise 11, complete the sentences with the expressions from the box. This one may vary. Let's see. Before people invented the wheel, they couldn't transport heavy loads easily. Did you get the same answer? Maybe there's another one that's better. That's the one I chose. In its early years, the novel wasn't thought to be good reading for young ladies. Did you know that? That's funny, I think, and sad. Scientific calculations were much slower before the invention of the calculator. You might have said computer, and that would also be true. The violin is one of the hardest instruments to play. What did people write with before the ballpoint pen? The fax machine is a much faster way of sending letters than the post. Of course, you might have said computer here too, and that would be true. Fax machine is almost too old to still use here, but I know that fax machines still do exist. Okay, next one. What can we do to save the whale from dying out? And the X-ray machine is a valuable tool for doctors, but it has its dangers as well. Okay, rule number 13. These are special cases when we use the and no articles. These are common expressions with no article after a preposition. Look at the chart. We say to, at, or from school, university, college, church, or work, and we say at or from home. No articles needed. We say to, in, into, or out of prison or bed, and we say to, in, into, and from town. We say we go by car, bus, plane, etc., but we go on foot. And we use to, at, and after breakfast or lunch, etc. We say at night, but we say in the morning, afternoon, and evening. And we say on Monday, etc. When we talk about seasons, we say in spring, summer, etc. Or we could say in the spring and so forth. So you have a choice here. And for holidays, we say at Easter, at Christmas, etc. Now consider this. If we say she's in prison, it means that she's a prisoner. But if we say she works as a cook in the prison, she's still there, but she only works there in this case. We could also say she's at the prison, which indicates that she's there for some reason, but she's not a prisoner. Maybe she's visiting a prisoner or delivering something to the prison. One more. If I say you should be in bed, I mean that you should be resting in bed. But if I say I found chewing gum in the bed again, well, you can see what that means. In exercise 12, you can choose a word from the box to fill in the blanks that will make the sentences make sense. Be sure to add the correct preposition. Let's do this one together. How do you usually get to town to do your shopping, one might ask? Oh, I usually go there on the bus, but sometimes if I have a lot to carry, I go by car. After a hard day at work, my mother used to come home and go to bed to rest for a half an hour before making supper. Children go to school to learn to read and write. Does your family usually go away in the summer, or do you stay at home? We sometimes just say stay home and leave out the preposition. Don't drink coffee in the evening if you have trouble sleeping at night. When Juliet was studying at the university, she broke her leg and had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks. Wow, that's a long time to stay in the hospital. I want to take a moment to remind you that I'm teaching American English. The British sometimes use articles a little bit differently. Okay, this is the last rule. Yay! Rule number 14. This is about names of places. We sometimes use an article and sometimes we don't. So here are the rules about that. If we're talking about continents and most countries, we don't use an article. For example, Africa, Germany, and Peru. But we do have an exception, and that is the Netherlands. This is another name for Holland. For states and counties, we don't use an article. Some examples are Texas, Oxfordshire, Normandy, and Orange County. For towns, we don't usually use articles. Ottawa, Prague, Sydney don't use articles. But we have an exception, and that is The Hague. I think it's a funny thing that the country that is our exception for the country rule has a capital that is also the exception. I should research this and find out why the Netherlands and The Hague are exceptions to this rule. It might be an interesting history lesson. Let's continue. Most streets don't use articles. For example, Fifth Avenue and Oxford Street. Lakes and most mountains don't use articles, like Lake Superior, Mount Everest, and Mont Blanc. Buildings with the name of a town in them don't use articles. For example, Oxford University, York Airport, and Reading Station. Now, some places do need a "the." If the name of a place includes a common noun, such as United or Republic, we use "the." So, countries like the Czech Republic or the United States use a "the" in front. The names of seas, rivers, and deserts use "the." The Atlantic, the Thames, and the Sahara Desert are examples of these. Groups of mountains and islands use "the." Some of these are the Alps, the Himalayas, and the West Indies. Most geographical regions use "the." Regions like the Far East, the Loire Valley, and the Midwest are all examples of this. Finally, hotels, cinemas, and theaters use "the." We say the Ritz and the Amundsen. If you'd like to complete the last exercise, you can do that and send it to me in an email, and I'll give you some feedback. My email address is alex@alexeselworld.com. That's ALEXESWORLD.com. The last exercise is just to write 10 sentences about places you've been or would like to go. This should give you some good practice. And that's my lesson about articles. I hope that's helpful for you. I know it's a lot of rules, but no one said articles would be easy. They are, however, really important if you want to speak like a native. If you didn't watch the whole video in one sitting, maybe that's for the best. I don't want to overwhelm you. Let me know if the exercises are useful. I could add exercises to other lessons if it's going to be helpful for you. That's it for today. Next week, I'll start on prepositions. Have a wonderful day, and remember to be kind to each other. Take care.